Okay, with that, let me call the October meeting of the IT Advisory Committee together. It is 7:34 on Thursday, October 28th. We are meeting virtually. And thanks everybody for coming and being available this evening. I think, Dave, you've taken attendance. The next item, next item of business is to just to quickly approve the minutes from our last meeting. And then I think we probably want to hear from Steve, so we don't keep him waiting too long. And we're going to talk a little bit about the new 712 school and also just get an update from Steve. So on the minutes, do I need to share my screen or does everybody have their own copy locally?
I have my copy.
I'm all set.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I've already read them.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anyone have any changes or corrections to that? Okay. With that, somebody want to move to adopt these?
I move to adopt the minutes of the September 21st meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Just go, hands up. Yeah, great.
I'm abstaining since I missed the last meeting.
Okay, I was wondering.
Oh,
Okay,
I should abstain too for that same reason. The minutes look fine. I don't know if they recorded what was actually said, but.
okay. So that is
errors.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 3 abstentions. Okay, great. Minutes are adopted. Let's move on to our next item, public comments. I don't see anyone from the public on the call, so I think we can move ahead and let's hear from Steve Mazzola on the 712 school and other stuff that's going on with IT in the school department. Hey, Steve.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hey,
Good to see
Hello.
you.
see you.
So, what do you want to know?
How's everything?
How's it going? And what are some of the are there issues or challenges on or needs that you have vis-a-vis the new building and facility that we should be aware of and we could help you with or advocate for, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so actually, I'll go back a little bit. As you know, we vacated the building right after school left for the summer, and we dismantled all the technology in that building. We then decamped for Chenery for the summer because our space wasn't available at that point. And then, so we set up shop there for a couple of months, and then we moved in. It was very late in August, right after we got the certificate of occupancy, into our new temporary space, which is what's currently the band room for the middle school. So since the middle school is not there yet, we're taking that space. So we're in our second temporary home, and then we'll move over to the 7th and 8th grade wing in September of 2023. So we have one more move to go. The move over, I thought, was went very well, considering that up until and through the opening of school, we were still under construction, and the pieces of the building that were where they're building the new 7th and 8th grade wing now wasn't ready for occupancy right up until the last couple of days before school started. So, but we had kind of all our pieces into place, and we were, bringing the network up and having vendors install things as spaces became available. Not all spaces were available throughout the summer. Some pieces weren't. But the good thing is that we were able to open with the, with the functioning network and most of the pieces in place. And so, and then of course, the things that were outfitted last were the things that were done last. For example, the electronic music lab on the first floor, that was one of the spaces that was, for whatever reason, was one of the delayed. Obviously, the emphasis was placed on the classrooms because that's where kids had to go and sit the first week of school. But it's great being in the new space. I love it. It's a beautiful building. I don't know if anyone's been on the tour that was held last week. It's quite a building, and it's such a pleasure to be in a new building as opposed to the old one. So the things we're working on, or we have been working on for the past, since this, well, it's been going on all summer, but certainly since the school opened, is we're still tweaking a few items. We know that when you go from a design phase to an occupancy phase, some of the things that you design, you got to adjust when you get 1,300 bodies in the building and 100 staff. And we've been doing that. Trying to think, and then there's just, people don't necessarily know exactly if they wanted this over here or this over here until they sit down and get in there. So it's been a lot of that. Hey, this printer really needs to be over here as opposed to there. We need to, we're going to fine tune the Wi-Fi in this area versus this area. As people start getting into labs and start using the labs, we need this set up and things like that. And then, one of the interesting things I find is just how the kids use the building. Because when it's on paper, it's very different than when, I just remember the first day when the first throngs of kids came through those doors. I was in the lobby, as a matter of fact. I was in the wrong place, actually. And it was great because it was just so, we had been there during the construction and it just didn't seem real. Just seemed like a lot of construction stuff, but it really came to life when those kids came in and they started settling down and getting to classrooms, and then the rhythm of the building started, and that's when I felt like it was really where we were going to be.
Hey, Steve.
Mhm.
It's Jonathan. When you say you fine tune the Wi-Fi, does that mean that you're sort of moving access points around, or are you doing some configuration stuff?
No, it's really just looking at the stats. So for example, when we were in the design phase of the network for the building, one thing we did is we did a presumptive heat map of the building. So this is what we think that the radiation pattern is going to be for this area. We put the, we got the building composition, walls, steel. We put that into the tool as well, so that would account for radiation being less or greater depending on the construction of the wall or the ceiling or the reflection at that point in the building. So, but what really is, hey, we thought, for example, we thought kids would congregate in this area. Now they're congregating in this other area. So, how do you adapt to that? And the other thing is we're just looking at, because we have a lot of access points. We have 197 access points. So we're just spending time going through, are there any frame drops? What's the throughput? It's just that there's a lot of it. It's not like anything is bad. It's just that
when you see that, let's say there's an increased load in one particular area that you hadn't anticipated for, or you're seeing frame drops in a different area, how do you respond to that? That was more my question.
Well, we've not had an area where anything has exceeded what we thought it was going to exceed.
Mhm.
It was just, we were just trying to understand the patterns. So no, there's no moving of access points or anything like that. As a matter of fact, in the early days, we actually had to throttle back some of the access points because they were just running too hot. And, to get that, access points that are joining each other to overlay properly.
Mhm.
But that was, maybe an hour's work. So for example, if we see, a frame drop, what we do is we know what it's supposed to look like. And sometimes those stats are cumulative over time, and sometimes they're reflective of, so typically what we would do is we would just reset the statistics for that particular access point and just see if that continues, because we do know that sometimes during the initial provisioning of wireless networks, there are things that will display through the initial portion, that through the initial part of the provisioning of the network. And then once you clear all the stats, then you have a better representation of what's going on. For a good example of, things that we continue to work on is, so for example, if you're familiar with I'll call it the backside of the building, that is facing the phase 2 construction site right now, where the field house is, or it still is, it used to be. That area is still under construction, and so we still had some network to build out in that area. There's still an IDF in there that we only took possession of about a week ago. So just that kind of stuff as things move along.
Thanks.
And Steve, my understanding is that there are different networks depending on whether you're using a different wireless networks, depending on whether you're a BYOD student or using a school issued a Chromebook. Is that right?
Right. So this system that's in the high school is different than the one that we have in others, in that we have much more flexibility in terms of security that we can wrap around it. And so what we decided to do is to make it so that we try to simplify, but also then segment off some of the network as opposed to what we used to have in the old high school. And what I mean by that is, if you come in with a district issued laptop, so basically a teacher, then you go on one SSID, and as soon as you log in, that automatically joins you to that SSID. You really don't have a choice. You just join. If you come in with a district issued Chromebook, so basically a student, then you get forced into a different SSID with different permissions, different access. If you come in with your own device, so I'm a student or frankly a faculty member, I love my MacBook Pro, that's what I want to use, then you get put onto a third network that has fewer, less ability to on the network. In other words, you're basically just going out as a guest network. You're not touching any internal resources. So those are the three types.
And is there a separate network for like the, I don't know, smart boards or other connected, stuff that is neither staff or student, but is just kind of a, managed IT asset?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the difference between this high school and the old high school is we have many more VLAN structures in that. So you're right. People aren't, if you haven't been to the high school, we have flat panels now in each of the classrooms. And yes, those are all on their own VLAN and get subnetted and are, given static IP addresses. Printers are on their own. If you're on this SSID, you get, this scope for IP addresses. Trying to think what other devices there are.
So that's a big boost for security as well, just being able to do that type of segmentation.
Yeah, it's just easier to manage, even though it's more complicated in the overall setup. The initial setup was much more complicated than the old high school, but once it's up, you're right, the management is much easier because we only deal with segments as opposed to, it's less of a flat topology now.
strikes me that the old school really grew up with the internet. I mean, it obviously is a pre-internet building, and then, I guess over the years we added, wired network drops, right? And then wireless, and everything was kind of tacked on after the fact. So,
Well, if you think about it, up until the day that building was torn down, there was Cat5 wiring in those walls,
right.
unless we had done some retrofit for some reason. But you're only going to get Cat5, maybe 100 on a good day if things aren't oxidized on either end. So,
Which they are, right.
Yeah. So good day, probably 30 megs somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. So
Steve,
now we have a, everything's of course gig to the desktop. We have dual radios with Wi-Fi 6, 1.5 gig throughput, 40 gig backbone, redundant backbone, 14 IDFs in phase 1, and then we have another 6 or 7, no, 8 more in phase 2.
Hey, Steve, I had maybe just 2 general questions. And the first is, given that the building has probably a lot of automated systems and, is sold as, or, it's built as a green facility, are a lot of those systems under your purview, or is that totally separate, in terms of the IT infrastructure for those?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Glenn. You hit it exactly on the point in that this building, we've had more demands on network services in this building we've ever had. And that's a good thing, because you're right. That's the only way you reach those green efficiencies is to have monitoring and to allow, to have what we really didn't have in the other building was the ability to not only monitor, but then respond
Right.
To temp alarms, whatever it is, but to constantly get those, particularly overnights, get those, is the heat running overnight? What are the lights doing? Things like that. So, yeah, there's all kinds of, we've had to work very closely with all the HVAC stuff. The security system is much more sophisticated and larger than it was in the old school, with all the cameras, all the digital cameras and all of that. Many more doors, of course.
Mm-hmm.
All those right on the network.
So that all is also managed by your team?
Just the network piece. We don't manage we manage from the switch port, in, and they manage from everything out. Yeah.
Okay. And then, you mentioned cameras and other security devices, and again, it's just a bigger operation. So my second question is just around, data storage. Is that something that's handled on site? Is that, through cloud services? Because presumably there's just a lot more storage demands for a lot of this information that you've got.
Yeah. So one thing that's different about this building potentially than the other buildings is that, I don't know if you remember, but years ago we had moved towards centralizing years ago, every school had their own DVR and NVR. So they were recording all the data, all the video locally. And frankly, those were analog cameras. They were running all the time, recording all the time. And we had some override period. Now, then what we did is we took a lot of that and we put it into Homer, where there's basically a SAN for video. But you're right. So this building has so much video related data, that there are 2 NVRs sitting on-prem that record all that. Even though they're IP cameras and they don't actually run a lot of video, run a lot of traffic, and the video is compressed, but it's still a lot. And also the difference with those cameras is that they only record with motion.
Right.
So at night they're not recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Steve, what sort of feedback are you getting from the faculty and the other staff about their use of the information technology in this building? I mean, it's been basically favorable, better than what you heard in the, when they were operating in the old building, or about the same?
It's kind of apples and oranges, because if you think about it, the old building had its problems, no doubt. And let's, let's face it, we didn't invest a lot into the old building for a few years because we knew the building was coming down, and we couldn't repurpose all that equipment in the district. It just, so we didn't want to throw out, good stuff. But on the other hand, I mean, it was all operational. It wasn't like it was dying. But so we go from that to, you think about, for example, we go from projector-based smartboard systems that have bulbs and fans, and when you stand in front of it, you get it's projecting on you basically. And it had to be calibrated. It was touch sensitive, so it had to be calibrated. And by the way, if you had the unenviable position of having your classroom along the railroad tracks, you were recalibrating your smartboard more than others in the building because of the vibrations of the trains going by. So in this building, and those were 75-inch diagonal.
Okay.
In the new building, we have flat panels, 86-inch diagonal. I mean, I was amazed when I first saw one of these. I stood in the back of the room. We did a model classroom in the summer. It was like I was right in front of it. I could be in the back of the room. I was seeing as well as if I was in that. So the technology is just so far superior. And the touch capability, you don't have to, there's no alignment needed. It's just like your TV at home. You don't have to align your TV after every program. And so what we did is we simply, because now the other thing that intervened between the planning stage and the taking possession of the school was, if you remember, we had to close the schools. We went remote, almost 18 months ago. So we had to give all the staff laptops. And so the good thing about that was that when we came to go into the school, we already knew what model we were going to use. We're going to give you laptops. You're going to continue to bring your laptops in. We're going to give you a docking station, which is hardwired to your smart board, but then you can take your laptop with you. So in that respect, I think teachers like the idea that, hey, I have an easy USB-C dock that works. I can just plug it in. I can get onto my board, or I can unplug it and take it home with me. So that's been the good part of that. I'm sure there's some people who miss having their desktops. Sometimes I miss having my desktop. I'm lucky I have both. But I think the other thing too is that, the building itself is so much different than the old building that there's just stuff to get used to. Light sensors, how do light sensors work? How did, just how does the whole flow of the building work? And people had to get used to, oh, they're still working on the heating and cooling systems. It's all heat pumps now. It's not the old system. And so once people get used to kind of being in that new environment, then, I just think people get more comfortable with it. I think the other thing that helped too is that, the kids were used to having their devices for the past couple of years now, and they're used to having it all summer. And so they just kind of picked up from where they left off in June, and they came in and did their thing. The one thing I really like about, we were talking about this today, was one thing I like about the design of the school is that it's very interesting. If you took the tour, if you remember, the media center is on the second floor, but it's not like the old school. If you remember the old school, it was this big cavernous area where it was just a huge, I don't know how many square feet it was, but now the library proper is a relatively small area, but there's project rooms on the side, and there's all kinds of free study space where kids can wirelessly sit down at tables and work collaboratively. That's the big difference, I think. If you talk about, Charlie, between the old school and the new school, I see so much collaboration between students or among students than I did in the old school, because it was made for that to occur. The old school, we kind of, wherever you could sit, maybe you could fit 2 or 3 kids together. And you couldn't do it really as well in the library because there were so many kids in the library. now there are these opportunities to have these smaller pockets of 4 or 5 kids who are meeting together. And the first thing that struck me was after the first week, I went up to the library because I like to tour at least once a day. I walk the whole building. I just like to see what's going on. And I was walking by the library, and there's 2 project rooms, and they both have smart boards in them on the short wall. They're smaller units, but on the short wall. And in each one of the project rooms, kids independently, without a teacher, were writing with a stylus, like a teacher with smart, and they were drawing out like calculus equations. One was doing just art drawings with it. They were obviously doing some kind of thing together. You never would have seen that in the old school. So when I see those things, because usually I'm hurrying from one place to another, but when that makes me stop and see, I think that alone, I think is worth the investment of going to the new school.
Yeah, I can still remember it's been a while since my kids graduated, but I can still remember the old library. It was like, it really wasn't a study area. It was a common meeting area. And now what you're telling me is that you've been able to provide what I would say is more of a seminar environment, lots of them, that sort of are connected to a much smaller central library area.
Well, what's interesting is that, I say how big the school is, and it's much bigger, obviously, than the old school,
right.
But it feels smaller because it was purposely designed. I think Perkins and Will, the architects, did a really good job with this, where they have very deliberate spaces that break down this large student population into smaller collegial work groups. So there's areas that say, hey, sit here, and it's very well defined. There's no railings or fences, but like the carpet is different. It just tells you kind of visually, sit here and do your thing. There are small tables in the lobby. Whoever thought about having meeting places in the lobby? Maybe in some corporate offices you'd have that type of thing, but we never had that in the old high school.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter, who's a junior, said like it's really nice. Like if you need to get reading done, or you have a free period, and like there are all these little places where there are just tables or chairs that you can just sit in and kind of have a little bit of privacy and get some work done. Or, obviously we know like the old school people were, donating benches so kids had a place to sit in the hallways because there was like nowhere to sit, or using a library or something. Yeah.
You know what else struck me, and you might find this amusing, but in each of these places I'm talking about, the kind of these designated places where students work, there are power outlets.
Yeah, right. Crazy idea, right?
Crazy idea, right?
Yeah.
But they're purposely like this counter spaces, almost like you're at a Dunkin' Donuts or something.
Yeah.
And underneath is, right in the built-in, there's power right there.
Yeah.
So someone thought about that, even though we kind of take it for granted in our offices that we have readily available power, but when everyone has a mobile device, and not all of them come to school charged, we know that, that's a big deal.
Hey, Steve, was there anything about the building and the network and sort of the backup, between town and the school that changes or changed with the high school? I assume probably not, but and just wondering about that and whether that was, if it was something, was it reflected in the SLA and in a meaningful, or did it require any changes in the SLA?
Yeah, as you guys know, we run the fiber network for the town with Dave's input and Robin and those guys. But one thing that one challenge this high school presented was that, if you remember, we have kind of 4 major hubs in the town, more or less. The Homer building, the old high school, the town library, and Chenery, kind of where a lot of the traffic routes through. So if you take one of those pieces out, meaning the old high school, what do you do with that until the new place is available? So I have to say, we did a lot of planning around that. And what happened was we worked very closely with the light department, and we were able to put in some temporary fiber. There was this weird period where we were going to have a kind of foot on both alligators, one on the dock and one on the boat in terms of fiber. It was really concerning to me. And basically the light department gave us an easement in some of their fiber ducts to do some temporary work, and it worked out beautifully. So we were able to keep the network routed, keep the town services up, and then just kind of behind the scenes, sometimes at night, we backed out the old fiber and put the new ones in. So all that traffic you guys were probably wondering about on Concord Ave, with all the more backups than are usually on Concord Ave, that was, a lot of it was our stuff in the manholes trying to get that working. So we're now back to where we want to be for the most part. So the next step is that we're going to reestablish the second part of the redundant fiber ring. And what we haven't done yet, and we had to wait for the lot to be cleared, is the part where they're doing the construction right now in the 7th and 8th grade wing, basically the old parking lot of the high school. We're going to run a fiber along the back of the new high school, along the railroad tracks, along the what used to be the edge of the old parking lot out into Hittinger Street. And then that's going to go to the light department's Blair Pond facility, which is right at the end of Hittinger Street. And that's going to complete our fiber redundant ring. And then we'll pretty much, we have a little more work to do, and that'll pretty much bring us back to where we were. Well, 4 years ago, we started ripping the fiber network around for the construction to be done. But the other thing that we have to do now, and this has kind of been in our planning, but now it's becoming to the fore, is I started noticing that all the lawn signs were going up for potentially a new library. And I'm thinking, I'm driving home one day, I'm thinking, I saw the sign for the first time going, uh-oh, library is one of our major hubs.
Yeah.
And so we're in the planning stage right now, working with Dave Petto and the other folks to, we're probably gonna, probably regardless of what happens with the library, we're probably just gonna bypass that facility. It was a little long overdue anyway, but so we're able to kill two birds with one stone with the high school project. We're gonna take advantage of the extra fiber we put into the high school and probably just circumvent the library as a hub.
Got it.
What about the hub in the electric light building?
Same thing. We're going to, again, with the extra fiber we put in the high school, and then we added and we cut out fiber along Concord Ave, along down by Hittinger Street. But then there was also a run that runs to the light department that we're essentially going to abandon. It's a very old fiber. But what that means is that we are going to have to run from the light department on Prince Street. I don't know all the streets. You think after 13 years, I know all the streets in Belmont, but so if you imagine coming past the senior center on your right, taking a left on that, there's that set of lights, and you take a left, and then you come back down, eventually brings you to the underpass.
Yeah, Royal Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, we'll be putting in a new fiber run there, and that will allow us to bypass 450 because that building is crumbling, and we've been planning for about 6 years. We've been moving fiber out of that building, but it was such a hub for us that it's just taken all this time. So what we did is, just backing up a little bit, and I think I probably told you guys this, but when the debt exclusion passed for the new high school 5 years ago now, maybe 6, almost seems like, we started planning, hey, what's going to, since we have to build this new high school anyway, this could be our new hub. What do we need to get rid of? So, and we knew 450 had to go away. We knew the library probably was going to have to go away at some point. We knew we were going to get rid of some old multi-mode fiber. And frankly, we also had to fix an issue that with fiber running to the Winbrook School, and all that coalesces at 450 Concord at the light department, the old light department building. So it was actually fortuitous that even though that was a choke point for us, it's now becoming a place where we can take advantage of some new fiber runs.
I'm curious about the Chromebooks. I remember when we first did iPad, one of the reasons we chose the platform was the availability, or rather lack thereof, of software in the Chromebook world that was only available on the iPads. Are there still any challenges in that space with the Chromebooks?
I mean, I think these days, but you're right, Dave. I mean, back then, I mean, Google Drive was still very new, and frankly, the Chromebooks were very poor quality. They really weren't where they need to be. We've seen the quality increase in the Chromebooks a lot over the years, but I think probably in the last maybe 3 years, the offerings from Google and just the all the apps and everything that's built around it has improved greatly. So we feel very comfortable with where things sit now. The hardware, particularly the Dell Chromebooks we got for the high school, very solid. The high school, I hardly ever get a request for like a mechanical failure, a board failure, or anything. If anything, it's, someone stepped on it, broke the screen. So I've been very pleased with the Dell. And then of course, we have HPs for the grades 3 through 8. And, the thing is too, is you also have to think about, Chromebooks at under $200 are really a commodity. It's not like a laptop where you're spending $600, $700, $800. So what you're really doing is you're hoping to get, basically Google is now saying, we're going to give you 6 years of security updates, and then you're on your own. It used to be 4 years up until last year. So we were hoping if we could do 4 years on a $200 machine, that's pretty much something we can budget for.
I was thinking more about the educational softwares and
Yep.
stuff that they want to use. If that's all available, that's great. I was just curious if there's still any challenges in that space.
If anything, it's just pushed us to online services.
Yeah.
Software as a service. And teachers that's what they're doing. Where there's very little in terms of apps or extensions that get downloaded. Actually, we don't even permit it up until the high school. So most of it is Google Classroom, Google Meet, and then whatever particular curriculum specific resources that they use, online textbooks, things like that. The other thing is we don't print anymore. Students just don't print anymore.
Yeah, everything's submitted electronically.
Yeah.
So we're saving on toner.
Oh, no. They're making up on the other end. They're making it up on, meaning the manufacturers, they're making up on the color toner and.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
Other questions for Steve? Any things, that obviously this committee can help you with, or that we should have on our radar, just looking ahead into, end of year and first half of 2022?
Yeah, I think we're still kind of in the shakedown cruise phase of this. We'll have a better idea probably when we get right after Christmas break. But I do have to say, the building committee has been really fabulous. They've been very supportive of the technology program. I don't know how they do it. They had, 200 meetings or something during this time. They turned out a beautiful product. And frankly, anytime that we had to make a change to the design, we presented it. And if they felt as though it was worthy of doing it, they put it in the budget and they supported it. So I have to give a lot of credit to those folks. Superintendent's been incredibly supportive. I think he understands what a big job this was for us to bring this new building online. So yeah, we have, everything's new right now, right? Yeah. It's like when you get your new car, you're hoping you don't have to do any repairs for a little while. And so I kind of like that feeling. All the access points are new, you know, all the panels are new, all the laptops are new. We'll continue to monitor it, but you know, I feel good about where we are right now.
And what's happening with the 7-8 wing and any deliverables for you and your team on that? I hear the pile drivers going, so I'm guessing they're they're a little ways away from laying down the network stuff.
Yeah, try sitting in my office.
Yeah, I can imagine. Holy cow, I'm half a mile away, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's like right there, doing. So I'm not sure if if you were familiar with the process, but during the design phase, we designed the whole buildings because for the very important reason that we had a budget for the whole building, right? So when it went out to bond and for the taxpayers to vote on. So basically all that planning is done. And so the good thing is we have a model of the 9 through 12 wing in terms of how we want to put things in, how we want to stage things. So when we go to do the 7th and 8th grade wing, we're pretty much just doing what we just did. We'll tweak a few things if we need to, but really it's just we know what our vendors need to do. We know how much product we need to purchase. We know pretty much what it's going to cost. We know what our labor rates are for the most part. So yeah, that's going to be, I guess, I'm not trying to belittle, but it's pretty much going to be more of the same. And the nice thing about the 9 through 12 wing is that a lot of the big pieces were built out. So the auditorium is done or will be done. The pool is in.
Yeah.
The band rooms are done. All those big spaces that take up a lot of real estate, all that kind of infrastructure is done. So now you're just adding mostly the library for the 7th and 8th grade wing, a ton of classrooms. Our offices will be on the far end. But and of course the construction company also, and all their subcontractors know what they need to do too, and what to avoid from the previous, the previous project. So we're scheduled to move in September of 2023, so 2 years. So even though it looks like they're just driving piles right now, I think all of a sudden, you blink and you're going to see steel up, and then you're going to see walls up, and it has to, right? Because 2 years is not a long time.
Yeah. It's going to come together quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And you have the added, you have kind of the added thing of where you have a living and breathing building next door, with 1,300 students. So it's interesting if you do go into the new high school on the first floor, if you go into the cafeteria, if you go through the cafeteria to the end, there's a big wall, that's the outside of the building. That's going to be broken through. How that's all going to happen while kids are eating their chicken McNuggets, I don't know how that's going to happen, but that's not my problem. So
Stand back, kids.
Yeah, we just need a few minutes here. Yeah. So I'm excited for it, and I'm really looking forward to see the entire project be completed, because of course what that means is that once that's done, we'll have a year delay, and then the 7th and 8th grade, well, not a delay, but in September 2023, the 7th and 8th grade will move in from Chenery. Okay, then we'll have a 1-year delay. And then the 4th grades will move up to Chenery. Then after that, I think there's another year delay. And then after that, then we shift. The elementaries then become fully K-3 schools instead of K-4 schools. So we still have a long way to go in terms of the district alignment, but it seems to be on track.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, and I was just going to extend an offer. If anyone hasn't seen the building, drop me a line. I'd be happy to meet you.
I might take
be
you up
honest.
on that because I missed the tour.
I'll give you a private tour.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah, maybe Glenn, you guys get together. Let me know. There's
okay.
a common
Maybe
time.
we'll do that little,
Yeah, that'd be great. I
Sounds like a
also
plan,
miss
thanks.
tours.
okay.
Yeah, so-
I,
sign
I
me
would,
up.
I would love to see it.
Let's face it,
I'll
guys, there are very few perks of being on this committee, so. we can do a little private-
Let's have an
private tour.
ITAC. Can we be have a meeting at the high school?
Sure.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I would-
We
Absolutely.
did that once before,
Yep.
many years
Absolutely.
ago.
I hear
I would
there's
highly
great
recommend going. We went, my wife and I went over the weekend. The school's unbelievable.
I'll even show you the MDF if you're good.
Oh, then I'll come back.
Okay. I don't know what changes are happening to the field house, if any, or whether they're just kind of using the existing structure. But I was doing some work with Belmont Media, and we had a problem that there weren't any drops in the middle of the building. We had to run cables like sort of across the floor. Is that going to be remedied in the new building?
So, frankly, I haven't been down there looking at drops. I mean, I know we planned for it because I know Jeff was in on some of those discussions, but remember when I
Okay.
said there was some pieces that weren't done, that IDF got turned over to us, a week ago. That is the IDF for the field house. So there's still some stuff that hasn't been done. We just put the Wi-Fi in just a couple of days ago in the field house proper. But I know that, when we were planning that space, because that was a renovated space, we knew that we had to have access for Belmont Media. But you're right, the closest network drop was probably, I don't know where it was, to the field house, because there was nothing in there.
It's over by
Until
the
recently.
scoreboard, I think.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Steve, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. And I think we're going to take you up on your offer of a tour, and we'll coordinate and get back to you.
All right, sounds great.
Great.
Be happy to do it.
Thanks for
Steve.
taking the time
Great.
this evening, sir.
Yeah. Thanks,
Steve.
Steve.
All right,
Great.
see you guys.
Good night.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay, that was great. Any other thoughts, comments following Steve's presentation?
I think that idea of a private tour is pretty nice.
Yeah, we'll take him up on that. Yeah. Okay, so next item on the agenda, Steve actually wasn't on the agenda, even though he was in our minutes. That's my bad. Is the Belmont PD email bounce issues. I had hoped to have John here, and I don't know if I don't think he is. But just to, familiarize the committee with this, I've had a hell of a time and have heard from other people who are just having a hell of a time getting emails through to the Belmont PD, particularly from Gmail, but actually I've encountered it from a bunch of different accounts. So I don't think it's Gmail specific. I did do some emailing with Dave about what's going on. And I've also been in contact with Jim and Kristen Daly at the Belmont PD, who confirmed that it is an issue with them. Sounds like they've got some pretty restrictive blacklists going on, or filters. I'm not sure what the objective of those is, but they're obviously rejecting a lot of legitimate messages, which I think is not ideal. So I did want to try and get Steve, Jim Steves in and talk about, what they're trying to accomplish, and maybe give him some suggestions on better ways to do it. But he's not here. So
Is there any feeling that it might be, they're trying to prevent phishing attacks by just not letting mail through?
yeah, I mean, Dave mentioned, I'll read you Dave's email to me. I think it is spam and phishing related for sure. And Dave said that they were, if I'm not mistaken, said that they were like doing some kind of, I don't know if it was geo-fencing on like the IP address or something like that. I mean, it didn't really make much sense. I guess you can do that, but I'm not sure why you would want to.
Yeah, that's not very effective tactic anymore because a lot of people are using VPNs or using, using something like Gmail, which, could be coming from
Anywhere, right?
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is how he explained it to me. But I haven't confirmed that. So yeah, that's what he said. I will speak with the chief about purchasing spam filtering. Currently, they geo-block using their firewall. Best, Dave. So that was his explanation. This is kind of a down in the weeds problem, but it has, I mean, I first encountered it at the beginning of the summer and I've sent a number of emails and it seems to still be a problem. So I think any help we can give them to rectify it's probably going to be good.
Even if it's just being a guinea pig and sending the mail from lots of different places.
Yeah,
See where they get
exactly.
I apologize. I know you mentioned this to me a while back, but I kind of lost a few weeks for I was out of communication for a while. So
okay. No worries. I mean, I sent out kind of it really came to a fore because of the Apple run, and I was just trying to coordinate with Christian Daly just about the police detail, and was just like every email I send to every Belmont PD, I ended up communicating with her by phone, as it turned out, because everything I sent them was just getting kicked back to me from no matter what inbox I sent it from. So yeah,
no,
okay.
It's a town security issue. If you
Of
can't
course, yeah.
share information with the police department except over
Yeah.
the phone,
Yeah.
that's very 1970.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't know if it raises larger questions like, why is the Belmont PD, running their own Exchange server? And, is this something that we can look at maybe pulling under Dave's umbrella or consolidating in a way, versus having, a bunch of different physical Exchange servers scattered about town? That doesn't sound smart to me at this late stage in the game, especially with all the issues with Exchange these days.
Does the town even host their own, or do they just use something in the cloud at this point?
No, I know. I think we still have our own email servers.
Okay.
We still got the hardware from what Dave said. So,
Well, then we should be able to configure that however the police department needs it to be done.
yeah. So anyway, something to follow up on. I'll try and figure out if we want to do maybe a mini meeting with John and
Is it worth just sort of going through Dave on this at a first pass and just sort of from the committee saying, we do think it is best that we that we're not limiting the amount of email that goes into the police department, and legitimate email should not be blocked, and
yeah,
just give it to him as a problem to deal with, to interact with the police department about.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, I've tried to turf it to Dave. I'm not exactly sure what the relationship is between his department and the Belmont PD. He seems a little bit hands off with it. So, but I think you're right. That probably would be the simplest thing to do. And I'm just not sure exactly if there's some politics involved there. But
Interesting.
I think we shouldn't have Dave handle it.
I think the issue goes beyond that, though. As I recall, was it a couple months, 3 months ago, that on-premises Exchange servers were particularly vulnerable to some issue.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they're doing that, the fact that it appears, not to be overly critical, that they're not all that skilled at managing these things, I think it adds extra risk to the Belmont Police Department.
Yeah, I mean, and Microsoft has really sent pretty clear guidance that they feel like everybody should be moving to Azure now, both Exchange and Active Directory from on-prem. But
Of course they are.
yeah, of course, right.
Yeah.
They manage, they do their own.
Frankly, as I understand it, the cloud hosted ones aren't always so well protected either.
Nope, they're being targeted as well. So,
But at least they get patched.
Right.
There's that.
yeah.
They have their own domain as well, right? Do the emails route through their own domain, or do they go through the town domain? Like
Yeah,
Belmont.
the Belmont has its own, they have like belmontpd.org or something
Yeah,
like that.
Is that the one through which the mail goes also, or does it go through the town?
I think so.
I think it
I
goes.
think John Steve's
yeah.
address says belmontpd.org.
Yep.
Yeah, it does. I see it in my minute template.
But that doesn't have to change. They can move into Azure and take the domain with
Yeah,
them.
of
Right.
course.
Yeah,
So this
yeah.
kind of-
No,
this
but
kind
it's
of
just
moves
another.
into- yeah.
It's another thing they have to manage separately from the town, and it's
Right.
Yeah.
a potential point of attack.
Yes. This
Right,
gets
someone
right.
forgets to renew the ownership
Certificate.
of that domain, and the next thing they know, someone else owns it.
Exactly.
This kind of right. This touches on some of the other issues that we brought up in, obviously our report, just around the sort of, kind of silos and the need for, someone to have for us to, as a, to have a little bit more of a holistic view of security. And I think this speaks to that. And just also how long this has gone on without resolution, I think is, to me, a little bit of a red flag. Like, hey, dude, you've got a very high false positive rate. I mean, I don't know. I just know from my own experience, but I'm guessing that I'm not the only guy who's getting mail kickback. In fact, I know I'm not. And like, that's something you should really be, addressing urgently, because, you're the police. But so it might be good to pursue that. Okay, that said, I don't think we need to say more about it right now. I think I'll follow up with Dave, and we can try and see if we need to have a little mini powwow with a little get together with the Belmont PD and some subset of us, or whether Dave can handle it on his own. Okay. Any other issues or questions on that bullet item, that agenda item? So the next thing on the agenda is a structural impact group discussion. And so the background here again is that the structural change impact group, or structural change impact group, is interested in coordinating with our committee to pursue, they've been soliciting ideas from the public on ways to improve the efficiency of the town. And one of the issues that's, come to the fore is around just getting more efficiency, particularly in areas like software licensing and IT management, I guess, broadly. And they are looking to get our thoughts on this, noting that there are 3 or 4 different packages being used around town for, ticket management and all different types of, functions, and that it would probably make sense to have just one. Maybe some, looking to address the IT impact or assess the IT impact of some other suggestions they've had, like one of the sort of electronic 311 type apps that people could use to report issues with potholes and stuff like that, and what might be involved in bringing something like that on board in Belmont. Obviously, a lot of towns use them. So they are interested in meeting with us. They have Friday morning meetings. I think tomorrow morning at 8 is their next one. But I have suggested that maybe we some subset of us, or maybe the whole committee, if we're up for it, attend one of their next Friday morning meetings and be there to answer questions and hear what they have to say.
How long do the meetings usually run?
I think they're about an hour,
Okay, I can do that. If that's
yeah.
useful.
And they are early. They're, they are 8 a.m. meetings. So, yeah. And obviously these days they're Zoom. So Matt Gasparo is the guy I've been communicating with, and I did ask him about the November 5th meeting if they want to make space on the agenda for us to attend that one.
So Paul, I mean, the questions that you've given as examples seemed actually better directed towards, Dave, in terms of, okay, are there areas of investigation for software licensing that we haven't pursued yet? Obviously he's been thinking about it. So I'm not sure that we're as qualified to answer that particular question. And I think that's probably where they're going to get, they're probably going to be targeting is what efficiencies are there to be in that maybe were either too hard to implement or hadn't been thought about. So I'm just wondering if we're necessarily the right body to answer those questions.
That's a good point. I mean, obviously these are issues that we've weighed in on before, both with the 21st century government report and the more recent report on ransomware, just around some of the issues related to the current IT structure. But you're right. I mean, Dave has thought a lot longer and harder about these issues than we have. So I would agree with you. Again, Matt reached out to us and seemed to had a number of issues that he wanted to bounce off the ITAC committee.
I suppose, I mean, if nothing else, he can kind of get the direction of where we think we should go for his queries, right? Yeah, so probably okay for him to start with us.
I think long and short, I'll see what I hear back from Matt. Maybe they don't need to meet with us, so they've already gotten answers to those questions. But if so, maybe just pencil it into your calendars for a week from tomorrow. And if the date changes, I'll let you all know. Okay. Okay, I've got a website renewal. Next item is website renewal committee. I have a meeting I missed their last meeting because of family emergency. But I'm on the agenda for the next meeting and wanted to report out on the work we did around third-party services and what intelligence, if any, we've gleaned on that. I've got a few days, so if there's stuff that needs to be followed up on, happy to spend the next few days doing that. Otherwise, what sense do we have just in the work that Dan, I think you and Dave did, crawling the existing Belmont site?
I think David reported on this last time, according to the minutes. Since I don't know exactly what he said, I don't know if I have anything to add, except it was challenging to crawl the website because so many parts of it are dynamic. So the tools that I was using did not give me completely consistent results. So even though both of us I thought the approaches that each of us were using were totally reasonable. We got very different results in some places. But it was clear that there was some redundancy where the town website links out to quite a few other websites, and some of which are, maybe doing similar things that we could coalesce perhaps, and others of which, maybe we want to pull that stuff internal. I'm not sure.
Okay.
What I think what I said last time is, I noticed most of the external links are to documents. There's a lot of stuff out to the state government for, regulations and PDFs of stuff. there did not appear to be a huge amount of things to outside of that. There are certainly some businesses and I obviously with a web crawler, I didn't see what, if any of them are like asking for your credit card number or things of the things that we were really concerned about. But there certainly are, I think, a number of those as well, but I don't think there's a huge number of those.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean that there were, hundreds of them, but I just noticed that on one page where, I'm sorry, I have to go check my notes to see exactly what they were, but if you want to pay the town for this, you go to this website. If you want to pay the town for that, you go to a different website.
Right.
And
That's the kind of stuff I think they're interested in substantively. And obviously there's also a sort of third party risk piece of this. It's just good to know like who we're using so that we can try and get our arms around that.
no, exactly, because now instead of worrying about one site being hacked, now you have to worry about
Course.
6 sites being hacked, and
Yes.
then everybody in the town has to change their credit card numbers and whatever.
Right. And again, we've seen that. I know that that GIS provider we use was hacked. Obviously, this is exactly the type of stuff that these cyber criminal groups are interested in. I worry a lot about Civics Plus, and what our backup plan is if Civics Plus ends up getting hit, because we're totally reliant on their platform, and so is every other small municipality in Massachusetts, and that makes them a big target.
Yeah.
It's an issue I've raised in the website renewal committee. I know it's an issue that Dave and his team have thought about, but I'm not exactly sure what our redundancy plans are, but it might be good to know. Could you guys, what would be the easiest way to kind of convey or distill what you found, just so I could make a somewhat coherent presentation to the website renewal committee on just kind of what came out of that?
Only done some very limited filtering of my raw results. I can certainly do some more of that for you and then provide you with the whole package.
Yeah, just like throw it into a Google sheet and like share it with
Yeah,
me, and then I
exactly.
can, I can just go over it with them. They don't need very granular detail, but I can definitely say like, we've got some redundant functions here where we're dealing with multiple vendors doing the same thing, and and here's a partial list, but it may not be a complete list. But I'm sure they'd be happy with that. It's a good start.
Yeah, I can help with that and put the results that I have in there as well.
Okay. So my next meeting with them is, I believe it is November the 4th. But so I think we've got a few days, but if you could pull that together, that would be great. Okay. Okay. And just feel free to loop me in, and happy to help in any way I can.
Yep.
The structural change impact group is also kind of, I think, interested in whether the website renewal group is going to make a recommendation to the select board on maybe putting an RFP together to actually redo the website. I think that's probably a good goal for us to have as a committee. I'm not sure that we're there yet, but that is something else just to make this committee aware of, and I may want to kind of bring you guys into the loop if we get to that stage. I'm guessing I'd probably be involved in creating that RFP, or the proposal for the RFP, I guess. But I think that's where things are moving. I think the structural change impact group is pretty focused on the website and the need to reform it and modernize it, because it is a choke point for a lot of access to a lot of town services. And so I think they're focused on it as they should be. And obviously the website renewal committee is focused on it as well. So anyway, Okay. I'm gonna say let's skip the cyber. I have nothing to report on the cyber awareness program. Move to the penultimate agenda item, which is the op-ed on remote meeting that I shared with you in the chat. This is something I'd like to run, but this is very much a Paul Roberts joint, and I want it to be an ITAC joint. So I need your feedback. There is no pride of authorship here. This is something I'd love to have us sign our names to as a committee, and so everybody's got to be cool with them. So I don't think, I mean, we could read it in real time now, or well, why don't we do that? I mean, this is like, otherwise we're going to be breaking open meeting, it seems. So I guess while we're all here, why don't we just read through it? It's short, and you guys can either make comments on it or yell them to me over Zoom, and then we can move it ahead.
So do you want sort of stream of conscious comments as we go here?
Absolutely, sure.
It reads like an op-ed, which may be your goal, but a statement
This
from
is
the
supposed to
committee
be an
probably.
op-ed. It's not a
Yeah,
report to
well.
the selectmen.
Well, okay. Do you want it to be a report to the selectmen, or do you want it to be more?
No,
like an
we've
op-ed?
already given them. We've given them
Done the
three
report to the
different reports.
selectmen.
Yeah,
Okay.
We've reported to them twice.
yeah. This
I'm
is
with
to
Paul
the,
on that.
this is a letter to the
That's too
community. really.
frustrating.
Yeah, this is a letter to the community to just kind of put it on their radar of saying, there's a decision that needs to be made by the folks in power that we really feel like is an important decision, and it's languishing. And so, I mean, that was kind of the goal of this, is to just make more of a public statement of saying, we really think we need to move forward on this.
I don't have,
It seems slightly antagonistic, though. That's all.
I'm sure it is. I wrote it. I'm an antagonistic
Okay.
person. So.
can we bring this up on the screen? I don't have access to it right now.
Oh,
You should have access to it, Charlie. You
Maybe
do.
I should,
Okay,
yeah.
but nevertheless, I'll bring it up on the screen. Hold on one second. Okay.
all right. So in the introductory paragraph, you say, why won't the select board act? I would say, why hasn't the select board acted? Because you don't want to say that they won't act. You want to say that they're going to act.
We can just take this out altogether, right?
You could, then it would be less antagonistic.
Less antagonistic. Yeah.
Again, yeah, I want this to be something that everybody feels good about submitting.
Okay.
So feel free to depolify it to your heart's content.
So if you want to go to the, Washington Post style here, you would say the select board should act.
So this is this would be the headline. This would be what's called the deck, which frankly, if it's a Citizen Herald, I might actually remove, because they don't generally do these for op-eds. So if it were to run the Citizen Herald, for example, this, as strange as it is to consider, would actually probably be the first paragraph.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yes, there's an S there.
Really want to de-antagonize the beginning, also call it the no-brainer thing. You might want to rephrase that.
Yeah.
That's you're implying things by saying no-brainer.
You're calling them idiots. We don't want to do that. They're not idiots.
Voting time.
It's a proven concept. It's, you know,
Choice. A good
Obvious choice.
choice, obvious choice, yeah.
Better.
Lateki.
and no one's gonna remember that reference, but
Oh.
I think they'll remember it now. It's
Yeah.
close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does date the op-ed a little bit, but I'm guessing I could say Michael Phelps, but let's make it more current.
Do you either have a number of cities and towns that have done this, or can you
I think it's all of them.
can you parenthetically name a bunch of them?
Oh, who have since approved it?
Yeah, that would
Um,
strengthen the case, I think, if you gave some specific examples or a number.
yeah, I would need to look into that. I obviously I don't have that off the top of my head, but I could. You're right. It would strengthen it to do that, but I need to do some Googling to figure out what those towns are.
So
I've heard that you could Google.
the last sentence there, the last phrase, nary a hiccup. I think that might raise some objection, because I think other committees did have some problems, but I think they've all been ironed out. So I think we could make the point that, you know, despite some initial growing pains, that's not a great word, but
What are hiccups?
despite some initial hiccups, you know, it's now just a normal way that people are used to interacting. I'm sure there's a better way to say it.
The next paragraph doesn't really flow as well as a consequence of an extra sentence on the end of the previous one, but that's okay.
Should it be meeting technology in their normal course of business?
Yeah, I think that flows better to my ear.
What was that again? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow at unmuting myself. So the prior paragraph, the ending, use
Yes.
online meeting technology in their normal course of business.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Do we have a strong reason? Do we have supporting evidence that this was driven primarily by pandemic anxiety, or do we think that the technology just made it easier for people to attend?
No, I think it was primarily the pandemic that initiated.
How about just say may have
Yeah,
driven by.
yeah, I wouldn't be as definite about it. I think that's a good point.
Well, in-person meetings were just flat out outlawed, weren't they?
For some period of time.
Yeah.
The point here is that the attendance of the meetings increased.
Yeah.
Mm.
So in the first sentence, it's not may have been driven, it was driven. by law, if not anxiety.
Well, no, that doesn't explain the
Um,
increase.
It doesn't increase the engagement. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
in-person
explained-
meetings were
That's
outlawed.
explained in the remainder of the paragraph. All I'm saying is, it depends how much emphasis you want to put on the pandemic anxiety and the pandemic environment. I think that was a substantial influencer, to be honest with you. But now we're maybe focusing on the third order semantics a little bit too much.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
Using virtual tech, using
Yeah.
virtual, yeah. I think if we put a hyphen after two, we have to put a hyphen after in, but I wouldn't put in a hyphen after either one of them, honestly. Maybe a comma.
Yeah.
Cars in the upper line should be plural.
Um,
No longer required to get in their car.
yep.
Yeah.
So just going back, so participate in, do we want a comma after the in to make it match the check into?
Say again, Dan?
The previous sentence, check into, comma, and participate in, comma, meetings from the comfort of their own, of their homes.
I'm gonna go back to the hyphen.
Okay. I'm not gonna die on that
Belmont
hill.
residents from the comfort of their homes. So plural, that's fine. Yep, that was a gift both to residents and our town government, which benefits from more citizen engagement. Just take that out.
Paul, don't hyphens have a space before and after them in that circumstance?
I think so.
Well, I think we're using, I don't know if these are hyphens technically or dashes, but
Check.
Don't worry about that. The newspaper will figure that part out.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
hyphens, no dashes.
Mhm.
Sorry, hyphens, no spaces, dashes, space on either side.
Yeah, okay, that's a dash. That's fine, but in that context, I would put a dash then. Anyways.
Okay.
Anyways, the editors will figure that out.
But if we're using dashes like in the next sentence, it's almost like parenthetical.
I think that scans fine. Given that very recent history, the
Yeah.
Pathfinder Select Board has still not voted to allow Belmont committee members. to
Need a dash at the end of that though, instead of the comma
Where?
after government, and then another dash.
Space dash.
You see, we're using it like we're using it like parentheses.
Exactly.
Um,
Or commas.
Which
so
is,
that,
which
so
is
you kind of have to have a pair of them.
it's done in op-eds. Just kidding.
Okay, I don't read enough of those, I guess.
Let's
Could
move
it
on.
be given this very recent history?
Good, Jonathan.
I think when instead of once.
Part of the leadership, not by. This simple step.
Yep. Thanks, Dave. Again, take effect or be in force.
Take
Yes,
effect.
Enforce, well, either one.
One works.
that's-
Yep. The
Abs-
next sentence seems, yeah, something's awkward between, I'm not sure that period should be at the end of the sentence.
The simple step is required of the town's executive leadership under the state's open meeting law.
I want to go back to that of and by.
Which
I
will
think-
again be enforced once the COVID executive order expires, of and by.
Right, this simple step, you might say, is a requirement of the town's executive leadership. But I think if you're saying is required, then you should say is required by. I think you could do it, is a requirement of,
It's the town executive leadership doesn't require the step. It's required, they are required to take the step. It's a little awkward. But the law
Yeah.
makes the requirement, not them. That's why I didn't like the by in that. Yeah,
I
that's
see.
a good way to say it. I like it that way better.
okay, I'll go with that.
Must,
Yeah.
You want to give the date that the executive order is set to expire?
yeah,
keeps
what is
changing.
that date? It
It's
keeps moving. but-
currently April 1, 2022.
April Fool's Day. We can make reference of that in this op-ed. We don't want to be foolish on April Fool's Day.
In-person only meetings, it just doesn't roll off the tongue. I don't know if there's a better way to say that. Will once again be confined to in-person participation. Or you can watch it on TV, but you can't participate.
Maybe restricted rather than confined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Confined isn't exactly right.
Hey, just as a comment there, I mean, there's, as you mentioned, there's the option for televising it. So you could say, you know, town committees will be restricted to in-person. How did I think of this? In-person meetings without the option of remote participation,
Yeah.
right?
And even though I mentioned the televising these things, right now, we don't have the technology to televise all the committee meetings. You know, we can do one at a time.
Right.
And even that's a big burden on the media center to do that.
What about the idea in the sentence that begins town committees will be restricted to, okay? To insert after meetings. Oh, you just took that off the screen, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, to in-person meetings only dash, then without the option of remote participation by a committee member. Does it make it more emphatic?
Mm-hmm.
Then you need a debt. Well, all right.
Comma works. I think the comma works.
Comma's okay.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to use all our dashes.
Yeah.
So
We got a quota.
I think we should have a special session where we really just resolve this issue of commas versus dashes. I think.
So one comment, sort of in not so much in defense of the select board, but at least to maybe help explain, because as soon as one of them read this, the first thing they'll probably say is like, why are we, you know, and I think they said it during our two sessions with them, is that they anticipate that the law will change. So why vote on a law that's going to change?
well, I mean,
It's
for one
probably
reason,
not gonna
because-
actually change.
yeah,
And
but
it's a
anytime
bit of
soon.
insurance, right? It's
Yeah.
we don't know how it's
Yeah.
going to change.
Don't worry, I'm on the same
The
team here. I'm just
legislature-
saying
Yeah,
we may
yeah.
want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
yeah,
hey, this is
Well,
probably what they would say, but we still feel that this would be a prudent,
Got
you
it.
know.
Yes, no, it's a
got
good
it,
point.
got it, got
point.
it.
Well, just
Um,
imagine
I-
if you're sitting down in the state house and you look at all the towns in the state and you go, wow, none of them have bothered to do this. So why should we change the law? Whereas, you know, if all the towns do this, then they'll say, well, this is, you know, we might as well go along with it. This is the way things are going to be done from now on. Let's make it a law.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I would use the same point, but maybe alter the approach slightly because, you know, how many of these legislators will actually go through the minutes of everyone's select board to figure out whether or not they voted on this, right? No one. But one avenue that we could approach, and you know, we've certainly suggested it, is to work with our state legislators, right? Like, you know, Dave Rogers or Senator Brownsberger, who've both expressed interest in advocating for this, and we've suggested talking to them because we talked to them, but we didn't want to represent the town, right? It's really the select board's job to represent the town's wishes in these matter, and they haven't taken us up on that offer.
And I agree, they're not going to go look through the minutes of every select board meeting, but they're going to read all the op-eds. And
But
I mean,
also
they do.
having our representatives say like, hey, we believe that our constituents would, you know, value a change in the law in this regard would be helpful. But we haven't actually told our legislators that. Right?
Yeah.
That would be something that would really be appropriate for the select board to do.
I mean, unless there's legislation that someone has actually introduced into the, you know, into the state house, why do we think it's going to happen? You know,
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's observed Beacon Hill to any degree should, you know, be highly pessimistic that their timeline looks anything like your timeline. You know, things move at a glacial pace there. There are all kinds of internecine struggles between the House and the Senate. And, you know, if anybody said this is definitely going to happen, that's probably a bet I would take. So, yeah, I mean,
There was a house bill that was filed, I guess. I just found that.
oh, good.
H3152. And there was one in the Senate too, S2082. If anybody's interested.
I stand corrected.
Paul,
yes.
the first sentence of that paragraph you just left, I think, mind you, opening the door for remote participation would not mandate.
1 second.
Okay.
Say that again, Jonathan.
The prior paragraph, sorry, I keep
Mind
missing
you,
my
opening the
mute
door for
button.
remote participation does not mandate the town committees deliberate remotely. It
Right, so I'm suggesting maybe change the does to a would.
simply gives town.
No, it's the sentence before that.
Mind you, opening the door for remote participation.
Would not mandate that town committees must deliberate remotely.
What about always deliberate remotely?
Okay. Yeah, better.
And should they choose to do so?
That's the definition of option. It's fine, but it's sort of redundant.
Which,
Yeah, but it's, you don't
Should they
want to,
choose to do so
Yeah.
is redundant with the word option. That's
yeah,
all. That doesn't
Okay.
matter, but
yeah, you're right. Good, Dave. Yep. Any
All right.
committee will
I'm
need,
just thinking, keeping the word count down.
okay.
yeah.
The voting, it's very clear to us that we're talking about voting of the select board. But in this paragraph, it might be misinterpreted and confusing to people if they think they're talking about the committee doing some sort of vote.
That's right. It
I
is,
agree with that.
it is ambiguous.
So,
Wait a minute.
I didn't understand what change you were proposing there. But as long as Paul's got it, that's the important thing.
No, I was talking about the prior paragraph again. I'm always a paragraph behind.
No, he's just a paragraph ahead.
okay, where were your edits previously?
Okay, prior paragraph, where the sentence that begins with the word voting,
Yep,
I think we should take that plus the following sentence and to avoid ambiguity, condense those into one sentence that would say, our town's leadership should vote to allow committee members to deliberate remotely.
I want
I
to say,
agree.
be more clear, the select board, they're the
Yep,
ones who
yep.
got to vote.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes, always
Vote.
good to be explicit.
when the need arises, period. This would be a small but important step forward.
Good edit, Jonathan.
Then, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think you can even omit that last sentence. I mean, you kind of summed everything up in the previous sentence. So our select board should do this thing.
so cut this last paragraph out.
no, the last sentence in the paragraph, that sentence to
That's
delete
fine.
it.
I don't feel it's necessary, but if other people
Yeah, no.
like it,
That's-
yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's been nice working with you all. By the way, did you all do your training?
No, I haven't done that yet.
I was gonna raise that question later, what is the
Well,
precedent for a committee writing a letter, writing an op-ed to the paper?
We're all going to hell.
It's certainly been done. I mean, yeah,
As opposed to by individual members?
I think it's more powerful as a committee.
What's an example you could give?
I mean, the warrant committee has certainly, I think, penned, op-eds before. Pretty sure the
Yep.
school committee has as well on occasion.
Have they penned them in goading some other part of the government to act?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Well,
I
when have we
mean,
been a follower?
Sorry?
Yeah. I mean, are you worried about losing your volunteer position?
I'm
I
school
just-
committee.
I just sunk all that cost of doing the training, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same as Dan.
You
was
know, guys, I
ours.
mean, you know, we're an advisory committee, and I think, you know, my perspective is we've been really clear in numerous meetings and in written reports that frankly, we took, you know, a lot of time and effort to put together that, you know, this is a pretty simple step that
Yeah.
is an important one. And, you know, I think it's been swept aside, and I think it's the type of thing where, you know, it's, you know, we, first of all, we report to many different committees in town. And I think it's the type of thing where you want to say, listen, this is something we want to raise the profile of this issue because we think it's an important issue. And we're worried about the disruption and dislocation that will happen if it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
But if you're not interested in that, then you don't have to sign your name to it. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be all of us.
I didn't say that. I was
I-
just saying we should think about what the implications are.
If we move forward with this though, okay, we can't blindside the select board. They have to be sent a copy of this simultaneously, okay?
Yeah.
When we send it to, you know, publications.
Just, I guess I mean, when was the last time we did talk to the select board about it?
Recently. I mean,
Fairly recently, early summer, I think, spring
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
And I thought at
Yeah.
that point in time that Patrice was asked to put some
Yeah.
work into talking to Dave about it and coming up with a recommendation.
Yeah, they've been really busy. Don't know if that's, I mean, maybe there's something in the works that we don't know about. That's, I guess, maybe.
I
give-
think syncing with Patrice before.
Which, as
pulling the
far as
trigger
I'm
would be
concerned, is
worthwhile.
still, you know, is orthogonal to them taking the vote.
Right.
Well, but they have to know what to vote on.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
you know,
they don't. All they have to know is to vote on whether committee members can deliberate, because that's the only question right now.
deliberate remotely.
Right, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not voting on any particular technology or plan or anything like that. It's just,
This is
can
really
a
just-
committee do this?
just
When
flipping, right,
when the emergency order is lifted.
right. It's just flipping the bit and saying when the executive order expires, if your committee has a member who, you know, is stuck at work or stuck at home, they can dial in and
Traveling.
deliberate remotely. Doesn't say anything about streaming, doesn't say anything about letting the public participate. It's really just about that. But they
Yep.
do need to vote to give committees the ability to do that. And then it is up to the committees to decide on a case by case, meeting by meeting basis, whether they want to do it. So
Not a requirement. It's just
just an option.
extra-
Yeah, just
An
an
extra
option.
option.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
And-
I've got a couple of suggestions about that concluding paragraph, okay?
Yep.
Uh,
Before we go there, Charlie, I'm still a
Go ahead.
paragraph behind.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Our committee believes the select board, the should not be capitalized, I don't think.
Actually, I thought that was the last paragraph, Jonathan, but so
Oh.
we're on the same paragraph. Here we go.
All right.
I think you've also, you say our committee believes. I think you've also got to say, we feel the benefits. Now, you may think everybody should think it's self-evident, but this is our opinion.
You're in the wrong spot.
No, not there. Not there. Our committee believes the select board has had ample time to deliberate. Okay. We feel the benefits of remote meeting technology, et cetera, is self-evident. And also that phrase at their early convenience, I know what you mean. You mean that the select board at their earliest convenience should do that. But it could-
Before April 1.
Why don't you just take the last part of the sentence out? I think that weakens it actually to even say at the earliest convenience is to say we urge them to vote.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but again, it should be before April 1, right? Because otherwise we're gonna get stuck in the way that we're
Yeah, we're gonna be scrambling around,
Yeah, okay.
reacting.
That's fair.
Then you've got to move that no later than April 1 closer to select board, because otherwise somebody could think, well, so you want remote participation and deliberation by members of town committees to happen no later than March 24th? No, that's not what we mean.
So this
That's
is
not
all
what
you
we-
want. This is what you want for your birthday. Oh, you just entered that into a public record. I hope you don't.
So that's just, I think, it's essentially, we urge the select board, this is not the correct language, no later than blah, 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 we urge the select board to vote, blah, 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 blah. Otherwise, you're going to confuse it with the action of the select board and the
Mhm.
action of the committee members.
That's a good
in
point.
my opinion.
We
Given
urge
the
the
way
select
that-
board to act no later
later
than,
yeah.
is that right?
Mhm.
Probably, yeah.
Well, given the way that the agenda often seems to have new items inserted or things run long and things get punted to the next select, I would just say, let's put it on the agenda for the next possible select board meeting. I mean, we can do it too late, but we can't do it too early.
Yeah, I'd say
Mhm.
act now. Let's be more emphatic.
Sounds like an infomercial. Act now before, the,
Yeah, all
the
right.
deal expires on April 1st of
Mhm.
2022.
Don't wait.
Okay, now, voting to permit.
I realize we don't want to make a second pass in here through here, but I realized one thing about the very
Okay.
beginning of the article.
Hold
So
on,
you have a web link in there, and if people get the paper copy of the newspaper, that's not helpful. So you might need to put the actual URL in there.
Yeah, I guess you can't have a footnote in a paper. That's just not going to work very
I've
well.
tried clicking on my newspaper before, but nothing happens.
Yeah, the Herald used to print out the entire URL with like. It was bad. I'm in fact, I'm tempted to just remove it because I'm worried that they still do that. And then it'll just end up with this huge ugly looking URL. So I'll just remove it.
Oh, you're not gonna spend for a tiny URL on that thing?
You could footnote it and make them earn their money putting, typesetting a footnote.
Yeah.
Well, you could make a mention that, it's on the town website. So anybody who's really intrepid can go find it.
Good at searching the town website.
Well, using Google to search the town website.
Yeah, it's an indirect plug for the website renewal project.
But I mean, it is discuss. I mean, people could find it if they wanted to. We just need to tell them it exists. Give them the title. They can Google it. They'll find it.
What's the title again?
If you don't know.
No, I know. Which I'm referring to the 21st. What am I referring to? The remote meeting?
It's enabling remote committee work.
Well,
I found it using Google.
Yeah.
Outstanding. I think that Google company is going somewhere.
It's just a search engine. What's good with that?
Yeah. I like Alta Vista myself. Okay, I think we're good. Let me just do a word count here. Oh, great. It's under 700. That's good. Yeah, totally agree, Charlie. We should send a copy along to the select board and Patrice. Just let them know that we've submitted it to the Citizen Herald.
I'd
And
actually warn them, we're about to publish this.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we should give them, not just say, we just sent this, but say like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Is something happening? And if not, then we're going to publish something If
That's
so,
not a
then
bad idea, Dan. Kind of give them the opportunity. Just sort of say, hey, we wanted to get a status update. Are you planning to take this vote? Because if not, we have put together the following op-ed, and we're planning to run it. But if you guys are going to be voting on this in the very near future, we keep our powder dry.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't want this to wind up in the paper the day after they vote on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was my point, is that let's make sure that we understand what's actually being done, and there might be more being done than we know.
Yeah, I think
Wouldn't be the
that's,
first old news in the Citizen Herald, though. Okay. I feel good about it. If the rest of you all do,
So I'll make a motion that we agree with the text and send it to the select board.
with an inquiry about their plans and timeline on voting on this. Yes.
so what are we gonna do? Are we gonna list our each of our names at the bottom of this or not?
Or
Or
we
at this
could just
point,
do members, we could do either list our names individually or sign it as the committee. I'm open to either.
I don't know what the normal, policy for doing this.
well,
would be.
I'm thinking about what the form of it should be right now in terms of what we send to the select board. And I think if we're going to send this as something of an alert, you might even call it a warning, then we probably should sign as members of the Information Technology Advisory Committee. That would be the signature.
Well,
Right.
I just remembered something fairly important, which is that not all the members
Yeah, John's
are
not here.
present,
John.
and I don't want, we
Yeah,
should
you're
not,
right. You're right.
we
Yeah,
shouldn't
let's-
put his
let's-
name on something for him.
Let's
Right.
vote to approve it, and then we'll circulate it to him and see if he has any additional edits or what his feelings are about signing onto it. I think
That makes
if we've
sense.
got
I
a
don't think,
if you've got a member who does not want their name on it, then we're going to need to list our names individually.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
also a question of, so we have the voting members here, but there's the non-voting members. I don't know what their status is and whether, we haven't consulted Robin or Dave or even Steve on this, so.
They're really
They're not
considered
members- they're not
members. I don't
members
think
of
they're
the
considered
committee.
members of the committee. I know I list them that
Yeah.
way because of some historical way of listing them, which is, I think I've changed it to town staff
Okay.
in more recent things of the minutes.
I think it's pretty safe to assume they are not members of the committee because they have never been appointed to the committee.
Right.
I just want to make sure we're not appearing to put words in other people's mouths.
No,
I hear what you're saying, but I think that's not going to be an issue for this.
I actually think the wording that you have there implies that not everybody necessarily subscribes to this. If you say the Information Technology Advisory Committee, the ITAC, without members of, I think that implies that everybody agrees, as opposed to members of, to me, implies that only some of the people are subscribing
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah,
And I would call it Belmont Information Technology Advisory Committee, just
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's explicit. Or the Belmont, either
And,
way.
and on our website, committee members are listed, and it doesn't include folks like Steve.
Yeah, we're going
Oh.
to change our name to Bitech. Yes.
Bitech. We could have like a big chompers as our logo.
We could put the word executive in there and then make it bite ack.
That's right. Okay, somebody want to move to adopt the document
Already-
as edited?
So I did before, so I'll do it again. I moved to accept the text, send it to the select board and ask whether they plan to vote on allowing remote deliberation. If not, we will submit it to the Belmont Citizen Herald.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Do we need to do a voice vote on this, or do we?
Right,
just
yeah,
start?
I'll start. Paul Roberts, aye. Charlie,
Dan Ellard,
Sure.
aye.
Charlie Smart, aye.
Jim,
Jonathan Green,
Goldberg,
aye.
Yep.
Okay.
Phil
And
Lawrence,
Barrett's
aye.
aye.
yep. Okay,
Glenn Wong, aye.
And I mean, I guess with the one caveat that we are going to ask the remaining voting member whether they subscribe to it, and if not, then we change the signature.
yep, that's correct.
Agreed.
Okay, last agenda item is just to set the next meeting. Should we try and, yes, Glenn?
Sorry, I had one more just to add as into
Oh,
other
sorry.
business. I
Yep.
totally apologize because this hopefully will not drag out, but I do have a draft of our much belated 2020 annual report.
Uh-huh, okay,
I'm gonna paste this in. I'm also we can review it quickly because again, this is one of those like open meeting laws. We should not be reviewing this sort of remotely. We can do it in committee, but not
out of committee.
out of committee.
Okay.
So let me just run it through quickly. I'll share screen too so that Charlie can follow along.
Thank you.
And then what I'm looking for is just any quick edits, but then hopefully this will be very short. Sorry, let me.
You need to share it, Glenn?
Yeah, I need sharing permission. Unless you want to open the doc and.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, you got it?
Yep.
Okay. So some of this is cut and paste from the 2019 report. So ITAC purpose, that was just a cut and paste. The information committee members also was a cut and paste. The difference I made was actually based on the conversation we just had, because I didn't bother distinguishing between quote unquote non-voting members, and I just said staff contacts and other participants are invited to, I should say, join the meeting, join meetings on an ad hoc basis.
And meetings, I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Attend meetings, join meetings.
Okay, to
Never mind.
attend, yeah.
Never mind.
Well,
They're both fine.
to attend meeting. We in the 2019, we actually had a comment in here that was like, the staff contacts were invited on a regular basis, and I don't think we've adhered to that, so I just took it out. Okay, so I don't think the list of members has changed, so that's just a cut and paste. Staff contacts, that's also a cut and paste. I don't think there's any difference.
You got at least 2 names spelled wrong. Ellen's name doesn't have has too many R's in it.
Okay.
I think and Steve has too many L's. I'll fix them for you.
Thank
since I'm
you.
in the doc. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was in the 2019.
Well,
so
Unless I'm on Google, so unless their LinkedIn's are wrong.
And
No,
Robert,
There is an extra R in Ellen's there. There's no R after the U.
No, so that one's
okay.
right.
They're also misspelled on our website then, because
That wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me.
Steve's name on our website does appear with double Z, double L.
Okay.
and Robin still.
It actually appeared that way in a couple of minutes before he or anyone else noticed way early on. Maybe that's why. And I take full responsibility for that.
Guys, are Robin Tilburg and Jim Siracusa still in their positions? I just don't know.
Yes, they are.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And again, this is a 2020 report, so I think they were in those roles in 2020.
Yep.
I thought, well, I'm not sure the timeline on this, but I thought James had been promoted to being a detective. I didn't realize he was still the public safety liaison.
Maybe both. You may be both.
I don't know.
He's listed as a detective on LinkedIn.
Right, he is a detective. I don't even know where this phrase came from because he was just a patrol officer before, I thought. I can take it out.
I'll go look on the website if I can figure out how to get in there.
And is it Syracuse with a C?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, that one's right.
Or I could just say he was our Belmont Police Department liaison.
Well, then we got him, and Steve is the IT liaison.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but his name is spelled with an S there. so
S, yeah, I think it is. It's SIRRACUSA.
I have it as CIRACUSA.
It's interesting.
Definitely an S.
No,
Really?
Pretty
sure.
sure it's an S.
It's SIRAC.
His
Oh, no, you're
email
right.
is
You're right. You're right.
jsyracusa.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, so the beef of it is actually here, or the meat of it. I can read it aloud, or you guys can read yourselves, and then certainly. And this was just basically taking all of our old minutes and then doing a quick summary of them.
Say, Glenn, I forgot, is this being submitted for calendar year 2020 or fiscal year 2020?
Calendar.
Calendar, okay.
Yeah, we're way late. Whether or not they even include it, I don't know. They've actually published the annual report as a PDF on the website, but I figured we'll at least send it in, and if they don't include it, we'll just amend it to our 2021 report, which will probably be due in a few months anyways.
These things used to get published and bound and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure that they do anymore.
Yeah, and at the time that I spoke to Matt Haskell, this was back in like April or something, he said, just send it to him electronically and he can, add it to their report, and it was fine. I don't know if that impacts, or if you would republish the PDF, or if it would just be,
Yeah.
but that's fine. Like I'm not that fussed about it, obviously, but
Not the first one that's been late. Let me tell you that one. That for sure.
No.
So, possible edit, the last
Yeah.
paragraph on the screen right now.
Yep.
It says, since had already been using Zoom. I thought we were using YouTube at that before COVID-19.
we use YouTube to publish the recordings, but we were always on Zoom.
Okay.
Oh, I remember it as well.
We want to reorder the staff contacts a bit, since Dave and Steve are a little bit more key than some of the other individuals, or put them alphabetically.
Alphabetically. We should do it alphabetically.
Alphabetically by last name.
I think that's appropriate.
Why didn't you guys bring this up in 2019?
It was late and we were rushed.
All right, so pedo, so that actually that was the only change I needed, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Very good.
Except that there's these stupid.
Yeah. Backspace all the way to the, yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this one page? There's like another paragraph or two after this.
About the headings, are they all the same? Like, is remote access for town committees a subheading of summary? I guess.
Yes.
It is. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So these are like heading 3 versus this is, I think, a heading 1.
But I think he just got an extra space there after the remote access for town committees. Just take care of that.
Remote. I'm sorry. Where?
Give an extra space between the heading and the body text.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right, I'm going to scroll down a little bit so you can see some more.
Yeah.
Right. So then there's just a nod that we had already started a ransom report. We continued it. We wanted to share it with them last year. We didn't. So I think we didn't do it until the beginning of this year.
Should we make note of the fact that we still haven't gotten action from the select board on that? Kidding. Just kidding.
No.
Next year, we can quote the op-ed that we may or may not be publishing. And then this is also a little bit of a cut and paste from last year. The continued leadership on remote access. It's just a slightly modified. You can see like, hey, we were doing this even before the pandemic started.
Before it was cool.
And then I wasn't sure exactly that we had ever really defined goals for 2021, so I just put a filler.
It's fine.
That's good.
Sure.
Was using
Alright.
all
Glenn, thank you
caps.
so much for putting that together. I really appreciate it.
So, took me like whatever 6 months too late, but anyways.
Hey, small nitpicky point, but whereas the website renewal committee probably was formed prior to the end of 2020, was the structural change group actually
Yes.
formed?
It was technically formed. I think they started work and had a readout in December last year, and then
Okay.
some of their work became a little bit more public beginning of this year.
Good.
So I know it's a little bit like revisionist history, but I'm pretty sure they were in effect.
That's fine. Okay, just wanted to double check.
Yeah. No, thanks for asking.
Okay.
Cool. So can we get a motion to approve, and then I'll go ahead and submit this to Matt Haskell and
So moved.
Second,
Okay.
okay. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Approved.
Approved.
Thanks,
Right.
Glenn. That's great. Better late than never.
Yep. All right. Take care of it.
Let's just pick our meeting for November. The third Thursday would be the 18th. I'm not sure how that works for people, but looking at my schedule, it looks good. So
For Thanksgiving, so.
Yeah.
yeah,
well, it's, yeah,
It's probably the only time we're going to be able to squeeze it in.
Yeah.
You know, after that gets really crazy with almost everybody, right?
Works for me.
Yeah, 18th is fine.
okay.
Likewise.
Let's lock it in for 7:30 on the 18th. And obviously, if stuff comes up, we can move it around. Obviously, we can't move it to the next week, but we can move it earlier in that week or something. But otherwise, let's look forward to seeing each other then. And I will obviously keep you guys in the loop on the op-ed and the
Structural
website.
change committee meeting.
Yep.
Mhm.
Structural change impact group. Yes. Right. All right. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Everybody.
night.
Everyone.
good night.
Yeah.
If